Danny, I think you're muted.
Good catch. Thank you, Laura. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the July edition of Group Talk Live. That was just a practice for me, so I'll give that to you again. Great to have you. I'll continue to watch everyone coming in. We'll have others joining as we start to do this, and we do more right now, as I said. Um, as, as we admit the rest coming in, want to welcome you to this session. Laura Walsh is with us. She is Director of Marketing at Smithers Oasis. If you have had any experience in the floral industry, that at Smithers Oasis is no stranger to your memory, because they are probably one of the most iconic brands or names in the floral side of the industry. They have introduced a series of products the last several years called Oasis Forage, and that's designed for owner, cut your own, make your own arrangements. And they've been a sponsor of the fall event the last several years. We've given them awards, the Retailer's Choice Awards, multiple times. And Laura is Director of Marketing over all those divisions. I found out that she has a great background and interest. Interest is probably too light of a word to describe her passion for organizational change. She's got a undergraduate and MBA in business, but she's working on her PhD in organizational change. Didn't know there was such a thing. So we're glad to have her today to share with you. She'll also be with us at the fall event. We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. In the meantime, as she starts to share her message with us, we talked about she's got plenty of time at the end for question and answers. And if you'd like to, if you have a question during the presentation, go ahead and enter it into the chat window. I'll be monitoring that, and we'll cover that at the end. So, Laura, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you very much, sir. I'm glad to be here. So first of all, just some housekeeping. Can everybody hear me okay? We're good? Okay. So for the most part, I tend to work remotely from my home office, but every once in a while I find myself in the office like today. And out of all of the places to be, I'm not going to say our internet is the best here. So I just wanted to make sure that we were good. So so my name is Laura Walsh. As Danny said, I am the Director of Marketing and New Business Development for Smithers Oasis North America. And he's right when he says that, like, this is my job, but my passion really truly lies in helping organizations be able to understand how they can change for modern business practices and the leadership skills that we need to make sure that we get there when we bring our teams along the way. So I think it's going to be a really great conversation. So you guys, I only have 45 minutes. I could talk about this topic for hours and hours on end. And as Danny mentioned, I will be at the fall event. So, I mean, if you're dying to sit around and talk about organizational change, you know where to find me. But for our purposes today, we're just going to do a bit of a primer where we're going to talk a little bit about some of the skills and some of the challenges that we're up against as modern leaders in business. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All righty. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So we went ahead and we titled this presentation Leading in the Fast Lane, right? So I don't know about you guys, but how many of you guys out there often feel like the world is moving faster than you could ever even imagine keeping up with it, right? That's how I feel every day. Every day that I head into the office, I sit there and I think, oh, there's new things I need to do. There's new technologies, there's new skills, there's all these new things. Will it ever really, truly slow down? So we're talking a little bit about how we can keep the pace today. How can we lead in the fast lane and continue to shape the future? I always like to level set any leadership conversation that I have with what's a leader. If you're sitting there at your desk thinking about this question, I mean, feel free to jot it down, right? Anything that comes to your mind as far as what's a leader. I always tell everybody this isn't a trick question. For me, it's not, anyways, but I always like to start any leadership conversation with this understanding and a grounding of what I consider a leader. So when I think about leadership, I have adopted maybe an overly simplistic view of leadership. So for those of you guys who are familiar with John Maxwell, I think he sums it up best. John Maxwell tells us that leadership is influence, nothing more, and nothing less, right? Which is kind of a crazy thing when you think about it, because when we talk about, leadership, we often, we will contort ourselves into all manners and all fashions that we can sit here and talk about. Oh, it's helping people reach a goal. It's doing this, it's doing that. But really, I feel like John Maxwell has done truly the best job for us when we really cut ourselves away from the noise and we realize that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So through this lens of understanding influence, I'd like to talk a little bit more about this idea of the fast lane, okay? So I am sad to inform you, there is only the fast lane now, guys. There's only the fast lane. As much as we might, long for the days of maybe when, business felt a little slower, there was less technology that we had to adopt. The reality of it is that here in 2025, truly, and analysts and people that are far smarter and researchers far smarter than I will say that we are under complexities now as modern business professionals that were just absolutely unheard of 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even as little as 5 years ago, right before the pandemic. So Danny put a question up for you guys while we were hanging out. There was a QR code question where it talked about what has changed in your business since 2020. And if I were to guess, I would probably say a lot's changed in your business since 2020, right? You could probably make a laundry list of all the things that have changed for your business in the last, 5 years. Some of those changes might have stuck, right? When we had the pandemic, we did all sorts of things that were different. And then, as we came out of the pandemic, I don't know about you, but I don't wear a mask around every day for fun, and I don't stay 6 feet away from everybody. So some of our changes have reversed, and we've ended up back to maybe in some other places. But the reality of it is that since the pandemic, and this has really kind of been a good catalyst for us, our skills that we need to lead modern change within our organizations, guys, they're so different. When you look at some modern research on change, the top 4 skills that they talk about that are necessary to lead modern change in 2025 is digital fluency, and we'll get more into these things. We'll talk more about some of these change areas, but the most in demand skills that we have for ourselves and for our people, and when we're hiring individuals, digital fluency. I mean, we love the people who are good at technology and make it look easy. Adaptability. Individuals who can really pivot and change with us. Those skills are key as we get into 2025. Purpose-driven, right? Like we all need a banner to be under, right? Like we need something that we're moving towards. That we do our best work. We truly do our best work when we are excited about the mission, when we know where we're headed, and we're excited to be on that journey with our team members. And then last but not least, skills that are pretty common to lead modern change these days are collaboration. I have long said, and one of the truest things about my hiring and my leadership, I tell my team, if you can't play on a team, you can't play on my team. And I mean that. Collaboration is a key to everything that we do. And it's extremely important as a skill as we're looking at modern change. So when you're out there looking for individuals, when you're out there hiring, when you're thinking, how can I be the best version of myself in my role today, whether I'm working on the floor or working behind a desk or whatever it needs to be, these are the skills that are the most in-demand skills as we're looking at modern change. So why do we need all these skills of modern change? Well, the reality of it is that we've been in business for many of you guys, we've been in business for a really, really long time. I always like to ask people this: how old is your organization? Here at Smithers Oasis, last year we just turned 70, which is wild to me. It's crazy. I like looking through the old archives of photos like this one here, and think about just the days of yesteryear when I'm sure, we had far less things to worry about and business was simpler. But as our organizations get older, we're finding it's harder to keep with the pace of change. And my favorite graphic that I want to share with you guys here, and this actually comes from Cotter, which he's considered to be like the father of modern change management. And I'm going to let you look at this for a second. But this is the change problem. This truly is the change problem. So when we get in business, in the beginning of any business at year zero here, as time goes on, we actually change a relatively small amount. Okay, I'm gonna let that sink in. You're going to change a relatively small amount. And you know what? That might not surprise many of you. Many of you guys on the call can probably think of business practices and skills and, processes that you've been, perhaps using in your entire business careers. So within an internal organization, we're seeing a lot less change over time. However, if you look at any outside environment, change is happening a lot more rapidly than what we are in our own organizations. So as time goes on, you can see here that, we're really seeing this rapid expansion of change, and really externally, it's far outpacing what we are doing as organizations. So you might be wondering, why on earth would that be happening, right? And a lot of it comes to increased complexity, right? So everything about your business is more complex now than it was 5 years ago, than it was 10 years ago, and certainly since it was 15 years ago. And with that complexity, we're finding more opportunities for us to, have to find other markets, adapt to technology, all that type of thing. And then the second big reason for this this gap that we get into is really we get a gap in adaptability, right? So our organizations, we as organizations slow up with our ability to change over time, right? We want to do things the same way. We want to think about things the same way, and our rate of change becomes a lot slower. So this opportunity is what we have here, right? So this is where we're at. If we are looking to have the chance to make good, meaningful change in our organization, we have to realize that the outside world is changing a lot faster than we probably are inside, okay? So with that being said, I'd like to ask you the same question. How long have you been working? Pause for dramatic effect while I take a drink of water. Love that. So the same thing applies, right? So if you think about how long that you have necessarily been working, the same change problem and opportunity applies, okay? And in this case, a lot of it comes down to your own human behavior, right? The hardwiring in ourselves, guys, the hardwiring of human behavior often resists this type of rapid change that we're seeing. So while we can sit here and say our organizations don't change because, processes, systems, complexity, other opportunities and things like that, but often the reason why we don't change is us. Right. And that's hard for us all to hear. I know that whenever I come into a new organization with fresh eyes, man, it's fun, right? Like it's fun. You can see the whole world and I can solve everybody's problems, right? I'm going to apply some change management philosophies and I'm going to change all of it. But the reality of it is the longer we're in any organization, we start to change less. And so this is why we have to stay on our toes. We have to stay mindful. We have to make sure that at any point in time, we are ready to adapt with any kind of modern times. So we're going to talk a little bit about a couple skills and a couple some pitfalls that managers and leaders often fall into when it comes to leading in the fast lane. So we're just going to hit some of these on a very high level. We're going to talk about empowering our teams, really developing new skills, making sure that we are technology advocates at all levels. Focusing on data and then realizing that some things that we just have to forget, guys. We just absolutely have to do it. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about a little bit on each section. And here's what I would ask you to do. If you are sitting here watching this and you have a piece of paper handy or a pen, or if you don't use paper and pen, if you want to just, type some notes for yourself or type notes onto a keyboard just to keep for later, that would be great. Because after we talk about each of these sections, I'm going to give you a minute or two to reflect on the question that I ask you and think about how you can apply it to your business. Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about, in order to be modern leaders that really change in the fast lane, we need to empower our employees at every single level. Okay, so this is probably like when you review any kind of change management, like leadership readings or research or anything that's out there. This is probably one of the biggest sticklers that are out there. So the modern research says that the hierarchical, top-down kind of decision making, you guys, that's gone. We are too busy. Our organizations are too complex. We need to work to empower our employees at every single level. Influence is not just at the top. Influence can be found within anybody in your organization and their ability to lead others. And the reality of it is one of the biggest things that plague us as leaders in an organization is this idea of decision fatigue, right? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes, oh my goodness, I get done with my day and I am just so overwhelmed with making choices. In fact, it's been a busy morning already. Danny texted me and he was like, "Are you actually going to show up to this webinar?" And I was like, "No, I'm definitely going to be there. It's just been a busy morning." I already have decision fatigue at 11 a.m. How is that even possible, right? So the reality of it is this is very real for us as leaders. And one way that we can combat this idea of decision fatigue and really support our modern leadership style is to really empower and delegate to other individuals, really empower them. I love this quote: "The more people you empower, the faster the change." This is so true. I talk about this all the time. We all have only 24 hours in a day. We all have the same amount of time, and change takes a lot of effort, and change takes a lot out of us. And so the reality of it is that if we want to go faster, we need to help others go faster with us. I'm reminded um, I'm reminded of a quote, and I can't quite remember who said it, so forgive me for the lack of citation on that. But this idea that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? I want to go far, right? With my changes, I want to go far. And so with that, that means I really need to look at empowering my team to make them as successful as possible. So how do you know who you should empower? When we're sitting here talking about, we level set our conversation with this idea that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, right? So I would really encourage you guys that if you're looking for an opportunity to make sure that you can implement meaningful changes within your organization, and I know we're just using this term of change like generically. We could all write a laundry list of things that we want to change, right? And I'm going to leave that for you guys. And like I said, if you want to talk more about it at the fall event, I mean, I'm always open on this too. But this idea of change, it's because it is often it doesn't come from the top down anymore. It's important to understand who on your team has influence. Okay, if you want to really get kind of crazy with it, there's a whole like matrix of like power and things like that that we could get into another day, which is super interesting. But for now, I would really encourage you to go look at your team, look at your people on the floor, any individuals, and really try to see who seems to talk and who seems to listen to those people talking, right? Or if something needs to happen, people will roll up their sleeves and help them. And it might be somebody that's just, I don't know, really fun to work with. It might be somebody that's super smart. And it might be somebody that's high on the food chain. It might be somebody that's pretty low on the food chain. The reality of it is that our employees have the ability to influence from any level that they're at. And we always talk about this too, and I'm sure you guys have heard this a million times. These don't have to be, individuals with titles, right? Influence doesn't have to come with a title. Really look for those individuals who have the ability to influence others, and those kind of people that people like to be around, and like when they do stuff, when they're working, like stuff gets done. Like those are the people that you want to really take a look at as your change makers, because you can't do it all alone. You don't have the ability. Business is far too complex. We have much too much to do in a day. So go ahead and lighten your load in this day and age and drop this hierarchical structure, and let's look to empower our teams within our own organization. So here's a question that I would ask yourself, okay? And this is your time for scribing to yourself. Who on your team influences others informally, regardless of job title? Okay. So you might be having somebody in your head right now that as I'm talking, you're like, oh, Justin does that. Justin always influences everybody. And maybe Justin is it. Maybe Justin is your guy that, definitely influences the group and they tend to follow him. So I would ask, how could you elevate their voice or responsibility in your next change effort? I'm going to let you just make a couple notes. I'm going to give you about a minute or so you can sit here and think to yourself, maybe make some notes. Who on your team do you know that has influence, and how can you elevate their voice or their responsibility?
Laura, in this influence question, I'm assuming
Yeah.
you're saying positive influence.
I would agree with that. Yes, thank you for the important distinction. We want to influence people for good, not evil. All right. Awesome. So as you're taking notes, I would really challenge you that whoever you wrote down on your piece of paper, I mean, start watching them. Start looking for opportunities that you can elevate, maybe help you with some of your change efforts. Okay. So leading in the fast lane needs new skills. The reality of it is, and we talked a little bit about the skills on the front end of adaptability and digital fluency and things like that. Modern change needs modern skills. So if you're looking at your team and you're sitting here thinking, oh, geez, we haven't learned anything new in about 10 years, which I don't think it should be that way because you guys are all part of this garden center group and you learn new things every single day, which is great. You're definitely focused on education and making sure that your teams have the skills that they need to be successful. But when you think about modern organizations and their abilities to make real change stick, it really starts with skills, right? You'll hear a lot of terms thrown around where we talk about like we have to upskill or we have to reskill, and those are all great terms, right? Because the reality of it is our jobs have changed, right? No matter what field we're in, no matter what our position is, we can all benefit from getting some new skills in the field that we're in. Or maybe there's an opportunity that as modern leaders, maybe our change means that we need people to do something that they've never even done before. Maybe they need to learn completely new jobs. Maybe we need to create new jobs. Maybe we need new efforts. And in those situations, those become a bit more of a reskill of taking somebody who maybe did something else and to do something completely different. What I love is that most learning, it happens on the job if leaders are intentional about creating coaching moments and micro trainings in real work. I know many of you guys, because I've had this conversation with lots of business leaders and a lot of individuals that say, I don't have the money to send my team members to whatever skill building event, whatever it needs to be. And the good news of that is you can actually be extremely successful of being very intentional about creating coaching moments for your team members that are actually on the job. So when you think about the skills that you need and that your organization needs, I would ask yourself to think about 3 emerging skills your team will need in the next 3 months. And again, this isn't a trick question. So like if I were to think this about my own life, I would say, okay, so what skills do my team, as running a marketing department, what skills would my team need in the next 3 months, right? And so I think about it and I go, oh, you know what? I think my team, I mean, we got to get a handle on this AI thing, just like you all talk about and need to get a handle on. We'll need to be better at AI. We might need to be a bit better at, maybe some new marketing communications tools, that type of thing. So list 3 emerging skills that you think your team's going to need in the next 3 months. And then from there, I would invite you to brainstorm how you could train each one on the job using existing tasks or routines. So like, for example, my AI one is pretty easy, right? So, maybe using ChatGPT for, rote tasks like, replying back to some emails or, that type of thing, right? So that's one way that we could train that on the job to help our employees learn how to do that, right? So instead of going necessarily to a school or a class to learn that, we would have the opportunity to do that, right within our teams. This can be any type of skill, right? So you could think to yourself, my employees on the floor, an emerging skill that they need to make sure that they're able to do is, manage the technological skills. If you track inventory on your website, if customers can see inventory or not from your website, like maybe that's a skill. Maybe your team needs to do a better job at being able to answer problems by looking at your website, or if you guys have any AI chatbot kind of features that help you to be able to answer customer service questions. Maybe any of those things could be emerging skills that you would be looking at. Okay. So when we think about the pitfalls that modern leadership often brings with it, pretty consistently, we get a bit of a hesitancy to really hone in and focus on our digital efforts, right? And one thing I hear a lot of is, oh, I don't need to be, doing. I don't need to be selling online, managing my inventory online, on social, doing this, that, or the other, because my customer and my competition in town isn't doing it, right? So if they're not doing it, I don't really necessarily need to do it, right? But being local doesn't mean that we have to be low tech. So when you look at a digital competency across the board, organizations that have been able to kind of step out of this idea of digital inequality, where we're able to, train our teams, where we're able to use technology appropriately, they're winning the race. They really are. The individuals that are looking at how can I use, technology and digital efforts to make me more competitive in this modern landscape of change, they're the ones that are winning. So you might be saying to yourself, but wait a minute, we don't have the money to buy a big new system. Thanks, Laura, great idea. We don't have the money for that. What I would say to that is it's been proven repeatedly that organizations that just dive into tech and kind of like bootstrap things for a while, they are very successful too. Where they run into problems is that once they, let's say, use a new system or use a new process, something that's maybe low cost and, that type of thing, eventually you're going to need to scale, right? Like there's nothing wrong with kind of putting and piecemealing some digital efforts together from the front end so that we can be successful, but eventually we'll need to build processes and platforms so that, we are able to make sure that we can scale. A perfect example of this that I can talk about from my own life, Danny had mentioned in the beginning that Smithers Oasis, we have traditionally always worked with retail florists, right? So we work with a pro florist. But then it was after the pandemic that we went ahead and we launched Oasis Forge products. And so the same type of thing, right? So this was a whole new area for our organization. This was a whole new place for us, diving into consumer packaged goods and really getting to know our independent garden center community and industry like you guys. So this was new for us. So we didn't have all the systems in place. We didn't have all the things figured out. And so what we've done is we found a good scrappy little group of individuals who are pretty tech forward, who can start to like bootstrap solutions for us, right? That can maybe put up a Shopify site, that can maybe use ChatGPT to do something different, that can use Canva to make all of our presentations, that type of thing. And then as we get bigger and as we grow this division, we need to put legs and we need to put scale and put some more support underneath of it. The reality of it is that we can't sit back and just wait for technology to come to us. And like I said, I've heard this consistently that individuals will delay a tech adoption because they believe that, others aren't using it yet, so they don't need to. And the reality of it is, guys, we're not just competing for the wallet share from other independent garden centers and other horticulture individuals. We're competing for the wallet share from everybody, right? And so the better experience we can give our customers, the better opportunity that we have, the more likely our customers will be to come back to us. And so really we need to make sure that we're amplifying digital tools to help us to be successful. And so that way we can make sure that we can meet our customers' expectations. So another question for you. What piece of technology have you hesitated to adopt because others in your industry haven't used it yet? And what might be possible if you led the way instead of waiting? Dramatic pause for water. Awesome. All right. On with our next section. Okay, so when we talk about what holds leaders back from modern change, it's organizations that aren't really in their data. So let data drive the change that you want. I make jokes that numbers are number one, and trust me, guys, I'm not a math individual. I don't want anybody to math at me. But the reality of it is that it's been proven repeatedly that organizations that stay in their data outperform others that do not. Okay. And you guys, I mean, the best part of this group that you guys have right here is the ability that you share so much data and so much information with each other. Right. And that's the kind of information that you need to be in every single day, every single week. You need to make sure that you understand your own metrics, the metrics of, the industry, of the group, all of that type of stuff. Because change moves faster and more effectively when it's based on real insights. I don't know about you guys, but have you ever, somebody said that we're going to make a change and we're like, well, why are we doing it? Where's the data? And somebody goes, yeah, no, I just feel like that's the right thing, right? Like I feel like that's the thing that I should probably be doing. I feel like I hear this a lot from, different individuals. And the reality of it is that we need to make sure that we know our information, we know our data inside and out. If you don't know your numbers, the reality of it is you can't lead a change because you don't know where you're going, right? The reality of it is that as we're looking at being leaders and creating real sustainable and modern change within our organization, if you don't know where you've been, if you don't know where you're tracking, the reality of it is that there's no way that you're going to be successful. And if you are successful, I'm not sure you're going to know how you got there. You might stumble into it, but true success really is understanding exactly where you're going and how you're going to get there. Additionally, and you guys know this, what gets measured gets improved, right? So if we're wanting to make a change initiative or a change effort, making sure that we have data to base this on is extremely, extremely important. And this could be changes of all sorts of all sizes, right? The reality of it is that we can need data to make a change from, I don't know, a system that we use every day, or maybe getting into a new market, or bringing in a new product line, or maybe changing the flow of how garden center is laid out. We need information and we need data to be able to do that, and then we need to make sure that we're consistently measuring. It's definitely a way for us to consistently measure what we've done thus far. One thing that I want to point out too, I would challenge you guys as one way to help get your teams excited about using data to help drive their change decisions is come up with ways to incentivize and reward your staff or your team members for using data within their decisions. So often, and trust me, I'm a marketing and sales lady, right? Like I love just coming in with shiny presentations and saying all the things and walking away and, getting the win because I had the sizzle and the steak, right? But the reality of it is that if I didn't bring a presentation that's backed by data on why this is actually good for our organization, I shouldn't be rewarded with my win, right? It should be like, Laura, I love this idea. You need to go back and you need to work a little bit more to substantiate it and make sure that you're bringing us the data and the business case and all of that. And we need to look for ways to really acknowledge our employees that have the ability to use data in decisions, and we need to encourage those that are maybe not doing it just yet. Because the reality is that if we are all focused on our data every single day, that we're all going to make better decisions. Just from soup to nuts, we're all going to make better decisions if we're coming from a place where we're informed about our data compared to being in a position where we're just winging it, right? Although winging it can be fun sometimes, for the most part, I really advise that when it comes to any change process that we make sure that we know what we're doing. Okay. All right. My next set of questions that I'd like you to think about. All right, so bring a recent decision. So think about, I don't know, think about any decision that you've had recently and ask yourself, what data did you use or did you wish that you had used? So think about a decision that you've made here recently, and it could be anything, but think about a decision and think to yourself, what data did you use to make that decision? Or what data did you wish you would have used? And then, of course, the follow-up, you guys can all read. Then challenge, how can we track this next time? And these are great questions, right? So the next time you guys are trying to make a decision, one really great thing that you can do right on the spot, whether you're saying, oh, I'm gonna change a traffic flow or signage in the store or fill in the blank. A really quick thing, when your teams bring you this type of solution is to say, what data did you use to come to this conclusion? And then say, awesome, if we don't have data, how can we track this next time? Which is often the case. I love it. And I feel like you guys are so on the right track for this specific area. This group, more than any group I've ever worked with, the data that you guys have that's available to you, it's just such an amazing opportunity. And you guys are a really good group, and you know that. Okay. So then here's the other thing that I want to mention. One of the greatest leadership challenges, the pitfalls that we run into as modern leaders that we are, is this idea that there are some things, and I know this will be very hard for some of you to hear, there are some things that we need to unlearn, okay? The reality of it is that some of the greatest leadership challenges of today is really letting go of the thing that used to work, right? I don't know about you guys, but it was easier for me to see things that we should stop doing when I first came into the organization. Now that I've been around Smithers Oasis for 8 or 9 years or so, now it's harder for me to say, oh, well, we should stop doing that, right? Like, oh, or challenge it and say, why are we continuing to do that? This truly is one of the greatest leadership challenges that we have, is to unlearn, let things go, and maybe let things fall to the wayside. So what's interesting, I just read an article here, just a couple days ago, talking about this idea of needing to subtract things from our plate in order to succeed and make meaningful change. And it's really interesting because another thing that we do as leadership professionals is that just like we don't necessarily reward the individuals that bring us data, we also tend to, as a group, we reward individuals who want to add things, right? Like we're an addition kind of culture, right? So you're doing all of these great things for your business, and then, oh, by the way, now we're going to add this other thing on top of it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do one more thing. Whereas we don't ever ask ourselves or ask our people, okay, cool, if we're going to do that one thing, what are we taking away to do that one thing? Powerful, right? I know in my life, because this is just how I'm wired. I just think I can keep putting more on and I can just do it all. But the reality of it is that we cannot. And so we need to challenge our employees and ourselves that when we're bringing new efforts in, what can we drop to the wayside, or what can we unlearn so that maybe we can learn how to do something maybe a little bit differently. Because the reality of it is that true transformation starts with unlearning before new learning can take root. And that's hard, guys. It's hard. If we, start to know our businesses like the back of our hands, it's a real challenge for us to be able to say on a daily basis, what habits do I need to stop? What do I need to change about my learning? And what do I need to completely forget about so that maybe I can do a good job? All right. So here's my question for you on this one. Ask yourself, what's one business habit, belief, or process that you're using that no longer fits today's market? What no longer fits your market? What's not serving you anymore? I feel like these could be like questions I could talk about forever, right? Because I know that we've all seen it. We've all seen organizations that maybe have some stuff that we probably should have stopped doing a few years ago, but there's that one customer that really likes it, right? Or something that we buy in year after year because, one lady buys it every single year. What's one thing, a belief or a process or something that no longer fits today's market that you continue to do every single day? And then the flip side of that question is, what would it look like to unlearn it? And what could you replace it with? And if you did decide to unlearn it, would anybody even notice? I always think that that's an interesting spot to think about. How many times we go through processes and habits just because it's something that we do and it becomes very rote to us. But at the end of the day, if we did stop doing it, nobody probably even noticed or really asked us about it. So those are the things that I'm talking about when I say that, look for opportunities for habits and beliefs to maybe go ahead and unlearn so that you can maybe learn a new one and replace it. Okay, awesome. So those are 5 big ideas that we talked about, right? So we talked about we talked about this idea that we need new skills, that we need to empower the teams. We need to really break down some of those hierarchies and the silos that we have, and we need to make decisions at all levels within our organization. We need to look to empower individuals. From there, we talked a little bit more about skills, right? So we talked about the need to really focus on the skills that we need to get us into the next, today and then the next generation and then, so on down the road, which is extremely important. One thing I didn't mention on skills, but I think it's important. I just read the other day that the half-life of any skill is about 5 years. So if you haven't learned any, let's call it like 6 or 7 years for some like non-tech industries like ours. So if you haven't learned anything new in 5 or 6 years, you're probably pretty out of date, right? We need to make sure that we're keeping our skills up where they need to be. We need to boldly go into new digital efforts so that we can make sure that, we're really competing for wallet share while making ourselves more efficient. And then finally, we have to make sure we're focusing on data at all points in time to make sure that we are doing a really great job at knowing our information and knowing exactly how we need to use that information. So I leave you, and then we can turn this over to any kind of questions or any kind of open conversation with this idea. And this is actually from a book, but this quote, "It's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow." Okay. I showed you the chart in the very beginning where we talked about the rate of change internally does not necessarily meet the rate of change that we're seeing in the external environment, and that indeed is our opportunity. But when we do nothing, that really becomes a risk to us too. Often people are afraid or a little bit nervous about, oh, well, we can't try anything new because unfortunately we might not be successful or we might fail or it's too risky. But I'm here to tell you the bigger risk is doing nothing at all, because as the rate of change continues, we're going to end up a little bit further behind the 8 ball every single time. So it's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow. Okay, so there you go. With that, I'm gonna keep it. Oh, I did so well. I had until 11:45 and I got it on 11:43 right there. So I would really encourage you guys make change happen today. If you do nothing else today, maybe answer a couple of those questions for yourself. And we're happy to, send out those questions, after this, I'm sure, Danny, and that way you can give it a little bit of thought for yourself. But if there's anybody who would love to, spend some time talking about making meaningful change in your organizations, I mean, you know where to find me. I'd love to have that conversation. And over to you, Mr. Summers.
Yes, and with that, I will address Dr. Walsh because I know that's going to happen. That change is going to happen. Okay. Everyone's muted, so this is a good time for us to interact with Laura. And you can also do this between now and the fall event. Laura will be with us the entire fall event. So in the evenings and during breakouts, and of course, you'll be around the Oasis sponsor table as well. Great message. One of the things that you gave us some quotes that I told Sid and Tim that I think they're like commercials for the group because of data, and if you don't know your data, you can't lead change, that sort of thing, and that's at the DNA level of the group. To think about the core type of garden center, and the normal day-to-day activity, the rush of business. For an owner or a manager to really take on this mindset of adapting to change or instituting or creating areas of change, is it, Laura, do you think it happens every day, or do you have to set aside time for your team at, off the normal flow of work? What's your thoughts on how do you structure this as a leader?
Yeah, I think that's great. That's a really good question. So, I mean, any depends on the size of change, right? So if we're looking for big transformations, or if we're looking for like just small, like micro changes. So let's say we're looking for something that's a big transformational change and something that we're going to do. Yeah, that's going to take active buy-in. That's going to take, maybe going off site, getting, some buy-in, and maybe working some change steps. I mentioned Cotter before. He's got a really great change methodology. It's like an 8-step process that let's say you wanted to do a big transformational change. If you're looking at micro changes, I believe you just work them on the job, right? Like you just say, start with one thing, right? So if you're working with your employees on the floor and you say for this week and this week, we're going to focus really hard on instituting this one thing, right? And then we're going to get back together and we're going to see how it worked. Did it stick? Did we like it? Was there something we should be doing different? And then give that change a little bit more time to continue to work through it and stick. And then from there, I would encourage we get, one change done, we get one new habit, like we can go ahead and we can add more on a little bit at a time, right? If you're looking at a big giant overhaul, I mean, that's going to take a bigger process. But if we're just looking to make like small micro changes, I would 100% think that they're great to be working on every single day on the fly. And we talked a little bit about like, data and empowerment and things like that, and, making sure we're keeping our skills fresh. And those are all great things that if you think about each area that you guys identified today, just being able to deploy even small little micro changes within your teams and within your jobs will go so far. But you got to get going. You got to get going.
Do you think you would introduce like this session to your team to say, we need to be working in this area on an ongoing basis and kind of set the stage for those little things day by day?
Yes, for sure. I mean, because people need roadmaps and clarity, right? So if you said to that point that, we've been talking about it, and for us to make better, faster change, I need to empower you guys, right? We need to empower each other, right? And so when we have that roadmap, that's what the goal, that will allow us to move so much more quickly, right? So that we all understand where we're headed, and then we can hold each other accountable, which is a whole part we didn't even get into when it comes to change, is holding each other accountable. But when you think about, as we consider, the empowerment is a really good one. I'm personally, I'm really guilty of maybe holding on to too much, right? And then somebody on my team will go, but Laura, you said decisions were best if they're made at all levels. And I go, oh, yeah, we're doing that, right? And so I like it when my team is able to call me out on it and help bring me back together. But they don't know, if I don't tell them, they don't know we're doing that, for them to be able to tell me that. And then it opens up a whole other can of worms on psychological safety and making sure your team can speak truth to power and all that good stuff. But that's for another time too.
Good points. Brandon out in San Antonio. By the way, Brandon, we've been praying for all that community around you guys and hope everyone in your audience and team is safe throughout all that flooding. He said, great presentation, Laura. What tip can you give us on getting certain members unstuck on inevitable change within the organization?
Yes. So every organization has these individuals, right? So before I address that, I wanna maybe put a nice pin on this idea that, I mean, they helped us get to where we were, right? And we have to be careful to not like vilify the status quo, right? Because I love change, right? I love coming into new organizations and doing new things. That sometimes I forget that not everybody wants to change every single day and want to do something new. And they often feel like, well, if we're making a change, if we're making an adjustment, there must be something that I've done wrong. right? And often those individuals, they'll really take it to heart. Or you'll hear things like, well, we tried this 10 years ago and it didn't work or whatever, right? And those individuals, I mean, it starts with good coaching and good communication and really just understanding a lot of their communication style and where they're coming from. What is the change that why don't they want it to happen? So for example, we might have employees that are afraid of an inevitable change because they know that their skills don't align with where we're going. So in that instance, I would talk to them about how we're going to upskill them to be good at their job, or how we're going to reskill them to do this completely new and different job, right? And then other times I'll hear things like, they're just concerned that maybe their job is going to go away if we change this process or we do something different, and same types of things. So like giving people a clear path forward so that they understand how they fit in it. And often these individuals, I'm not going to lie, they're going to need a little hand holding. And for us, individuals like us, Brandon, I'm sure that sounds exhausting, right? It sounds exhausting when you're as busy as you are to have to go hold everybody's hand to make sure that they're coming along with us to do the change that they're going to have to do anyways. But by creating that good roadmap and that good path, and then I would also say I would be candid. I would be candid. I think that's the fairest thing we can do for our employees is be transparent and candid when it comes to a change. Say what you mean and mean what you say, right? Because if we're like, oh, well, I think everything your job, oh, I don't know if your job's really going to change that much, but it turns out it's going to be epically different. I mean, we're not doing them any favors, right? And eventually it's just going to add to more stress. And then just if you think about how your employee likes to communicate, a lot of times I run into these individuals who like maybe they get a little nervous about change. Sometimes they just need to think about it, right? Like they just need to be left alone. They need to process it and it will turn out fine. Other times, like myself, because I'm a communicator, I want to tell everybody all my feelings all the time. And so I have employees like that too. But as we give them a path to be successful, I will also tell you, Brandon, at the end of the day, some of them will not come with you. And that has to be okay. I always talk about, we talk about companies as being like families, right? So Smithers Oasis is an amazing company. I love this organization. I'm so lucky to work here. But I don't think of us as a family. I really don't. I think of us as a sports team, right? Because families, you have to love them. You have to keep them around. And even like when your crazy aunt does something, you still have to, see her at the next picnic and be okay with it, right? Our employees, we don't have to be that way. So I would encourage us to adopt this idea of not putting like this idea of change of, oh, well, we're a small organization, we run like a family, but maybe pivot a little bit and really speak in terms of running more like a sports team, like a professional sports team, where we're all expected to do our jobs. We're all expected to stay skilled, keep up with where we're going, and bring us wins. And if we can't do that, we trade you away. And we'll miss you, but we'll give you some good parting gifts on the way, right? So the reality of it is that I've said that many times. The reality, so many times out of my mouth today, but we have to understand they're not all going to work. Some of them are going to need to move on, and somehow we have to make our peace with that, and that's okay.
Great
That
points.
was,
Sports teams versus families. That's a
yeah,
good change. Good change. A lot of accolades over here overall in the chat window. Any verbal questions? Anyone want to unmute and give Laura something we haven't really discussed yet?
unmuting is terrifying for the group.
Well, it's a big topic,
It is a
and
big topic.
they're all looking at their own organization and saying, I put in a little while ago kind of a joke, but seriously, we as the group, it's in our agreement or application for centers joining the Garden Center group. We ask fax machine. It's kind of like, why? Why do we don't do that? It's a lot of things that we're doing that we really don't need to do again or more. Um, Laura, it's a great session, 54 minutes, and you did have me sweating there.
I know.
I was practicing my hand puppet moves and this kind of stuff, thinking, how would we do this if Laura, I don't know, had a delay, got stuck in traffic, that sort of thing. You're in Ohio, right?
Correct. I am in Kent, Ohio, like half an hour south of Cleveland.
Yeah. So you were with us in Cincinnati when we were
Yep.
there at the
Mhm.
fall event, and I'm excited that you'll be with us in Raleigh, North Carolina in September. So aside from, let me see, anything else here? Um, Sid said we need to be thinking about retooling people where they are to do things AI and automation can replace, where they are to do things AI and automation can replace in 2 or 3 years could be very different when it comes to work that is done and how it's done. Also thinking about customers who may not adapt well and end up without income they're used to spending with us. So their jobs are changing as well. Our audience's jobs are changing.
Mhm.
All that is in flux. But um, it is harder to hit a moving target, someone once said. And so that means we've got to change. Um,
For sure.
yeah.
Yes. And if I leave you with nothing, I would just like to say do something, right? Doing nothing is not the answer. So my boss actually always tells me, Laura, don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. And so that's my, if you do nothing else, do something today, guys. Pick one of these tools, one question and answer it for yourself and go try to deploy it. Just do one thing.
Wonderful message today. We will have this recording up on the Group Talk Live series page later today. I'll send a quick note out to groupies and let you know it's up. I think there's a lot of people that are not with us today that also need to hear this. And Laura Walsh, we thank you so much.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you guys for your time today. And I look forward to seeing you all at the fall event.
And go look for Oasis Forage. You gotta be
Yeah.
carrying this product, a little side promotion for
Exactly. Side promotion, side
what pays the
promotion.
bills. Okay.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. Thank you, guys.